Welcome on back to another episode of the Goonery, wrapping up what has been an interesting season for the Chicago Bears. The start of the Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus era. It ends with the Chicago Bears having the first overall pick for the first time since 1947. First and foremost, I just want to say, Lovie Smith, you have always been my favorite Chicago Bears coach of all time. Mike Ditka can go pound sand. What a turn of events for the Bears to end up with the first overall selection.
And we were texting throughout the entire game and whatnot. We're just like, man, so close, so close. It's crazy how that last drive for Houston turned out. And for them converting a couple fourth downs and Davis Mills throwing up prayers and whatnot. And it's crazy to me that, take away from the Bears aspect of it all, that Lovie Smith knew good and damn well he was getting fired after that game. So he said, I'm going to go out on a note that's going to cost y'all the second pick, cost y'all the first pick, since y'all only gave me 1 year to actually do something with that, which, by the way, I want to touch a little bit later. But for Lovie Smith, I aspired to be as petty as him because he knew the Texans needed that number one pick. They needed a franchise quarterback. So now with Sunday's game, they're going to have to actually work to get the top quarterback in the draft because the Colts will be calling, the Raiders may be calling, and there might be some other teams that may be calling too, which makes it beautiful. And you know what? People can sit up there and say, man, the Bears were really this bad here to get a first pick. I'm here to tell y'all something. This was always going to be the plan. Let's keep it a buck here. It was always going to be the plan. If we wasn't going to get the first pick, it was either going to be a second or the third. We was never getting past that. So take the season for what it is. We have no idea how free agency is going to go. Literally no idea. But the main idea is that we have building blocks now. That little Lego that Ryan Poles put in front of the presser, that was that building block. Yep. And I guarantee you, when maybe we're on Hard Knocks later on this year,
I wouldn't doubt it.
We'll be building way up higher, and that's going to be beautiful to see.
Yeah, so I knew a lot of people, not a lot. I had a fair amount of people that I talked to who weren't too happy with Poles' press conference the other day. Personally, I'm not going to say I loved it. I didn't hate it. I was pretty indifferent on it, but people seem to be upset that he kind of alluded to the fact that he's not committed to spending a shit ton of money like we all expect him to this offseason. And we knew from the get-go, from his introductory press conference, he said he wanted to build through the drafts. We knew that coming into this year. And they're in a very, very good position to do that right now. I still think they should prioritize spending that money this offseason. Maybe they spend some of it this offseason. Obviously, you're not going to spend $125 million for next year, adding that to the cap, but I don't know if you wait to see Fields take that next step before you break the bank to surround him with more talent. But what else do you really need to see at this point? And I am sick and tired of the national narrative that Justin Fields is not the Bears guy. It is complete and utter bullshit that people say he is not an NFL quarterback, because for my money, in terms of pure arm talent, he is a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, in terms of pure arm talent. Am I saying, does he need to work on pocket progressing through his receivers a little bit better? Yes, but that will improve when he gets better weapons around him, when his offensive line play improves, and he won't feel the need to tuck and run every single time. You saw him start to get more comfortable in the pocket, and he said it himself. He does not want to be a run-first quarterback. He said, this was not how I played in college. This is not what I am. He has the ability. He just needs the pieces around him. And I'm conflicted with what I want Poles to do this year. We talked about this beginning of the season, that we both kind of agree that the most important thing for a young up-and-coming quarterback is you need an offensive line. You need to keep him upright. Mm-hmm. I would rather spend more money to shore up that offensive line than going out and getting more offensive weapons than anything at this point in time.
So I'm gonna go one by one when it comes to everything you just said. So I'm gonna go with the first point about the press conference. I think that people need to take the press conference with a complete grain of salt.
Absolutely.
It wasn't it like it was different from the previous years. It was all these theatrics from Ted Phillips and
Mhm.
George McCaskey about how we hear you. We need to get better. We're going to get better. We're going to focus on the quarterback situation. All that. It was Ryan Poles sitting front and center. Matt Eberflus sitting right next to him, and if I'm not mistaken, because I watched the entire press conference,
Mhm.
I don't think Eberflus spoke for more than 5 to 10 minutes.
Nope.
It was all Poles owning everything that the media was asking him. How did were you impressed with Justin Fields? Are you disappointed with the acquisition of Chase Claypool? Or what do you look to do about the offensive line? I want people to understand something. A lot of the higher ups in the NFL, they're all liars.
Mhm.
Everything's a smokescreen. And fact of the matter is, Ryan Poles doesn't owe us as fans or anybody else that's in the NFL that's his competition to know what exactly his plan is going to be. And for what we have heard about his plan is that he doesn't plan to spend big in free agency. Now that can be one of two things. One, he's not willing to spend money. Number two, he's not willing to spend money on guys that are going to be damaged goods by the end of their contract. Both
Mhm.
are very, very different, and one is very, very effective. And I think he understands that. Number two, I watched Get Up and I heard Mike Tannenbaum say what he said about how he would trade Justin Fields, get the number one pick and draft Bryce Young. I want to touch on that with a couple of points. Number one, this draft, as good as the talent is when it comes to Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Will Levis, whether you want to admit it or not, he's a talent. There are no can't miss prospects in this NFL draft. I hate to tell y'all this, but it's true.
It's
You
true.
are not going to break the bank for a quarterback unless you really, really need one. Which is
And
why Foles said he would have to be blown away by any quarterback prospect
mhm.
if he even thinks about not committing to Justin Fields. So
Yep.
that's number one. Number two, we're talking about how like Bryce Young must be so much better than Fields if that's going to be the case where they're going to trade Fields to draft him. Okay, sure. You're going to draft a guy that is a rookie. He's
Mhm.
going to need to learn the NFL game and whatnot. But you're going to trade Fields, who has been under the system, which I'm pretty sure Luke Getsy is going to remain the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. You're
Mhm.
going to trade him and get 6 high-level players to build around the rookie quarterback. To me, that doesn't make sense.
I
If
agree.
you if
And
you're going to do that, you're going to have to keep the same guy in place with that knows the system. It doesn't need a whole bunch of fine tuning to be a good quarterback. And number two, you're basically starting over and wasting
mhm.
money if you are going to get guys only to build around a rookie quarterback. That does not make sense.
And the thing is too with Mike Tannenbaum, you can't trust a word that comes out of his mouth when it comes to quarterback evaluations.
Absolutely
That is the
not.
man that drafted Mark Sanchez to the Jets and then completely fucked the Denver Broncos with Tim Tebow. I mean, I don't
Absolutely.
know how anyone can take that seriously. And I'm not someone I think Bryce Young will be a good NFL quarterback. He's my favorite quarterback prospect in this draft. But I have a hard time believing if Justin Fields was in this class, he would not be the clear cut first overall pick. I just find that incredibly hard to believe
Yeah.
because I'll keep it a buck. I think that if Trevor Lawrence was not a part of his draft class, it would have been a lot different and Fields would have been the clear first overall pick.
100%.
And I think it was one of those that just it all goes back to that draft class. People have overlooked Justin Fields from the start.
Yeah.
It's never going to end until he, I guess, proves himself as a pocket passer. Well, give him time. His numbers this
Yeah.
year, his passer numbers this year, other than yards, were better than Josh Allen in year two. I
Yeah.
mean, no one seems to be talking about that. And look at the step that Josh Allen took from year two to year three. And what happened then? What happened in between year two and year three for Josh Allen?
I want to make a point because it's crazy. I like that you brought that up because we want to talk about Josh Allen in his second year. We can talk about Jalen Hurts as early as last year.
Mhm.
Those were guys that people were questioning whether they could be NFL quarterbacks. You know what happened? They built around them in particular, and look where they're at. Buffalo is a Super Bowl contender. Eagles are the number 1 seed and probably the favorite to come out of the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
What is different with Justin Fields that he can't make that leap if they don't build around him? What is different with his game compared to the others? Because Josh Allen is a physical freak, and you cannot teach what he does with him throwing the football. You can't teach it. Jalen Hurts is special in commanding an offense, and he does not need to be an air and out guy. He can manage the game, and he can still throw the deep ball with great precision.
Mm-hmm.
What with Justin Fields can he not do with the stuff that he can be given? People got to remember, I think people get like really just lost in the records. First year, he didn't do well because of the circumstances. Second, he did well despite the circumstances. You gotta remember, Justin Fields is not signing these guys. He's not the general manager. He didn't even have the pull to recommend guys, because he was just a guy that was just trying to prove himself.
Yep.
So it seems as though like he's being blamed for why the Bears lost a lot of games. If you actually watch games and didn't look at the box score, it didn't see, it actually got to see that the Bears wasn't throwing the football very often. It was always running the football. That's why he had low passing numbers. You would see that despite the fact.
The number 1 rushing attack in football, and it's infuriating. It's just infuriating. I get the passing numbers in 2022, 2023 are horrendous. 2,300 or so yards for an entire season. He obviously missed, 2 games he missed this year?
Yeah.
Still inexcusable, but it's, again, not his fault. And I kind of alluded to it. What changed for Josh Allen in between year 2 and year 3? They went out and got him his guy. They got Stephon Diggs. What happened with Jalen Hurts? They brought in his guy, Devonta Smith. They got A.J. Brown. They put weapons around him, which kind of there's a few ways I think the Bears are could go about the wide receiver position this offseason. Everyone has been saying the DeAndre Hopkins rumors. I mean, obviously there's smoke there. Hopkins with Kingsbury out, he will not. I do not see him being a Cardinal next year. He's over 30. He's not going to be playing for a new head coach, and he honestly seemed unhappy in Arizona. If we're being honest. And I think he's a good option. I'll say it, he's on that same level as Devontae Adams, in my opinion, still. I mean, if he's able to stay healthy. And I don't think that will be the route they go. I think it could be a route they go. Realistically, I do think they trade that first overall pick. They trade back. I hope they get Will Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they do. But I still think they got to get Fields' guy. They get JSN. You're seeing the formula. Burrow, he got Chase. Tua, he got Waddle. Everyone is getting their guys around them, and it's working. It worked in college. Do what you have to do. The adjustment for JSN will be a lot smoother if he has Fields throwing him the football again, and they're going to have that rapport. They're going to have the chemistry. It makes sense, in my opinion, to trade back. And I think you're going to be able to get him at a little bit of a discount in the first round this year, just because of how the past year and a half or so has gone for him.
The dream scenario for me would be the Bears traded back not once but twice.
Yes.
I think the perfect trade partner is, I know people have been talking about the Indianapolis Colts standing up there, the perfect trade partner, which I tended to agree with. But I think a long shot is the Houston Texans. Houston Texans have 2 first-round picks this year. And if they are silly enough to do that, because let's be honest, I don't think that they would be willing to give up both first-round picks. However, if they do want to flip the franchise over and get their guy while they hire whatever coach they will, hopefully they get more than 1 year, that could be the play. And if that happens, JSN, all for it. Jordan Addison, all for it. And I think what makes me more comfortable is that, let's just say that Colts are the trade partner. You go to 4, you get Will Anderson, you get Jalen Carter, cool, whatever. Second round, there's going to be a lot of options. the great thing is that the wide receiver class is very, very rich with talent. I understand that people are wary about taking wide receivers in the second round or third round, but here's my thinking about that. You get a Josh Downs, you get a Zay Flowers, you get there's some wide receivers out there. The name's escaping me right now, but those are my two guys. You have those guys be kind of a guy that can be. You need a bridge guy.
Mm-hmm.
The DeAndre Hopkins is that bridge, and even if 2 years down the line he may not be the same player, he could still put up good numbers while not being the same player. And now you have a guy that you did draft in the second round that can very much develop. If Hopkins is getting most of the targets, Claypool's getting most of the targets, Mooney or even N'Keal Harry, if they decide to bring him back, there's options
And I
there.
hope they do. I hope they do bring back Harry, because he showed flashes why he was a first round pick again this year. And so if they do go the DeAndre Hopkins route, there's someone who I think is going to go a little bit later than he probably should due to his size. I would love Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. The big play threat that he is. I mean, he averaged almost 20 yards a catch this year.
I know there's those games. I wonder if we're on the same page, but like we watch a lot of college football, but there will always be that one game that sticks out to you because one player stood out. I remember Alabama and Tennessee vividly because of him.
Yep.
He was by far the best player on the field outside of Hendon Hooker. He was amazing in that game. And I know for a fact he's going to drop. And I think his counterpart, Cedric Tillman, is going to drop too. That's what I mean by this wide receiver class is very, very rich. Mm-hmm. They have options. And that's why getting that first overall pick was so damn important, because
they're going to be able to pile up draft capital.
Absolutely.
They really are going to be able to pile up draft capital. And I do think if there is a trade, let's be honest, I do not see the Bears staying put at 1. I think there's two teams. There are 2 teams realistically that I see a trade going down with. The Indianapolis Colts. We've been talking about that on this show for months, even before we were saying the Bears were going to have the first pick. We just thought it made sense. Or the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to probably try and make a run for Tom Brady this offseason.
I think so too.
And if that fails, I see them going all in. I see a scenario where Devontae Adams could potentially become a Chicago Bear.
Oh my God. If that happens and we get a good amount of picks along with that too, I'll take it.
I realistically think if they were able to get Adams, it would be they would get the Raiders first, Adams, and maybe like a third or a fourth, a mid-round pick. And you know what? I'd be happy with that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The teams that are trade-up candidates, historically speaking, they're not the best well-run franchises.
You're not wrong.
You can fleece the hell out of them. Okay, so that's the great part. I do think, like with the Colts and Texans, those are like your biggest suckers right there because they need a quarterback.
For sure.
Raiders, probably you can sucker them in, but it's all a matter of what do they want? Who are they looking towards to lead them into the future? But that's the part that makes me more excited than anything. We got suckers for franchises that are trade-up candidates, and they will spill.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this comes down to as well who gets hired as the head coach for these teams. And I don't know, out of these vacant jobs right now, what would you even consider to be the hot spot? Because it sure as hell is not Indianapolis anymore.
No.
And I would not want to go down to Houston after seeing how short of a leash they give their guys. I mean, Lovie Smith, okay. No one thought Lovie Smith was a good hire at the time. We all like and love Lovie as a person, as a defensive-minded guy. Always had a special place in our heart for him as a Bears head coach, but he was fired from Illinois. I mean, no offense, alma mater, it's got the flag in the background, but it's like when you're fired from Illinois, you have no place being a head coach for an NFL franchise at this point. And I know there was a changing in the guard with the front office in Houston, and it really was a punted year. But it's just, I mean, Arizona has to be the hottest job because of Kyler Murray.
Absolutely. And to touch on Houston, I cannot think in sports of a more unattractive job, especially if you're a minority candidate. Because what they did for the past 2 years was so disgustingly bad to minority candidates when it comes to, for a fact that they have no chance of competing. But you throw those guys in there, David Culley, who was the first long shot to get the job. He gets 1 year. And by the way, they overplayed their expectations under David Culley. He got fired. So it's like, okay, this must be a bridge. They had to hire somebody. They was under a lot of scrutiny for what was going on in Houston at the time. You hire Lovie Smith. And obviously, they had to take a little bit of like a better approach, I guess you could say, because Lovie Smith's been a coach in this league before. He just came off of being fired by Illinois, like you said. And he said, okay, look, we got an actual NFL coach that we actually are hiring. And he gets fired after 1 year. When really you had no like chance of competing in the first place. And you knew that. The Texans are a bad organization. They're really bad. And if I could
not even just, I mean, they're a bottom 5 organization in American sports.
They are horrible. And it makes you think, what exactly was the end game? Hiring those 2 minority candidates, giving them nothing to work with, still putting them out there, knowing that you're not going to compete, but still saying your best luck in your future endeavors. That organization stinks. And truthfully, they did us a favor on Sunday, but I wish nothing but the worst for them. I really do. They're a terrible organization. Terrible.
And I just want to say, I mean, big shout out to Lovie Smith and Davis Mills for just giving the biggest double middle fingers of all time to that organization, because Davis Mills will not be on. If he knows he's not going to be the quarterback there long term, and he's overplayed expectations since he's been there. Has he been good? No, but he's been a lot better than people ever thought he would be in a really, really shitty situation. And Lovie went into that closed door meeting where, I mean, when that came out, when Lovie had met with the front office and details of the meeting hadn't leaked, you knew he was gone.
Yeah,
you knew he was gone, and in his mind, I don't think Lovie's a vindictive man. I just think that Lovie likes to win, and he got his guys to rally behind him and just said, fuck you to the front office. And I mean, they had no business winning that game. With how that game ended, fourth and 20, Davis Mills scrambling, just trucks up a heave to the end zone, goes through a DB's hands and into the backup tight end's hands for a touchdown. It's just, you could not have written it up better for how horrible an organization is. Any competent organization would have lost that game intentionally by 2 touchdowns.
I think it's even more disrespectful that they didn't even wait till Black Monday to even fire him. If that same night he got fired. And the one thing I do want to say to any minority candidate that is thinking about becoming a head coach, or they're not going to
want to take that job,
stay away from the Texans job. Stay away. Completely stay away. And by the way, Nick Caserio still being there at the helm of all of this stuff is actually freaking amazing. Like, there's I'm not gonna like outside of Houston, Washington, they scapegoat their offensive coordinator. Ron Rivera, he's a great guy, but he should not be the coach of the Commanders.
The game has passed him by.
Like the moment where he had no idea that Washington was eliminated from the playoffs, should have told you what you should have known already. He's not the guy. He's not the guy.
That's his bad of a press conference blunder I feel like we've seen in a very long time from an
And he's
NFL
had a lot of them
I know
this year.
I know. And I just on the topic of Washington, Ron Rivera even 5 years ago would not have put Carson Wentz back in as the starting quarterback of that team. I don't know what was going on. I don't know because I really don't think Dan Snyder's in his ear anymore with him trying to sell the team at this point. I
Right.
think he could give less of a shit. Like, why, if you're going to start Sam Howell the final week of the season, why not just start him for the final two? I don't understand it. And Sam Howell didn't look horrible.
Yeah, and you know what? First start, there's gonna be some good, there's gonna be some bad.
Yeah.
I'm actually a very big believer in Sam Howell. I know you are as well.
Yeah.
We were singing his praises. We was hoping we was gonna take from him at one point, like way back then.
Yeah. God. Dark times.
But just it's crazy to me how I remember this particular press conference, which Ron Rivera said, what is the difference between the teams that are coming from a rebuild and you, quarterback? Who was the quarterback at the time? That would happen to be Carson Wentz. So considering that you put him back in, you look like more of an absolute dumbass for doing that, and it cost you your season. You lost to Deshaun Watson, who does not look the same, probably because he hasn't had a massage in about 5 months. Okay, so listen, I don't know why he kept his job. I'm assuming that they're not even worried about coaching stuff at this moment in time. They're worried about what's going to happen to their owner.
Exactly, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to in Washington. And until they're sold, nothing is going to change because when they sell, it's going to end up being a new GM. It's going to end up being a whole entire new staff, and the fact that the number like 6 billion is being thrown around for them right now is bonkers to me. I would have never thought that for Washington football. I mean, I guess it's that big of a market. Who would have thought? But regardless, so kind of moving into NFL playoffs here. I'm really excited for the AFC playoffs, man, just in terms of potential quarterback matchups that we're going to be able to see. But a few things I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. One, shout out to Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Geno Smith, everyone clowned the quote week one that, everyone wrote me off, but I didn't write back. I mean, I clowned him for it. One of the funniest quotes I think I've ever heard in a
By the way, if I was in high school, that would have been my yearbook quote. That is as cold as a quote I've ever heard.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
It was hilarious. But he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong. Geno Smith made a Pro Bowl this year and brought the Seattle Seahawks to the playoffs. A team that was projected to finish one of the 3 worst teams in the league, made the playoffs as a 7 seed. Incredibly fucking impressive. I know that I saw Christian McCaffrey was awarded Comeback Player of the Year. And I get it. He has proven himself again to be the most dynamic weapon in all of football. But the fact that Geno Smith did not win that award is insane to me. I mean, I don't know if you watched any of that game. He made what I think was the best throw I've seen all season. Ooh. From any quarterback. It was a touchdown pass to, I believe, Tyler Lockett down the season.
Yes, I did watch. I did see that. Beautiful throw. Beautiful throw.
Just as good of a throw as I feel like I've seen all year. And do I think that they are going to go into San Francisco and beat the 49ers? No, not at all. 49ers are my pick to come out of the NFC. But Pete Carroll, I mean, shout out to him too, because I know I and many others wrote him off completely. We said the game had passed him by. You don't know what you're doing. Turns out it was just a Russell Wilson problem. And all he needed was Geno Smith. And they're in a very interesting position because they have Denver's first-round pick this year. They could draft a quarterback and ride out Geno until they feel that this quarterback is ready. They also still have Drew Lock, who apparently they believe in. I don't get it. Like, whatever. It's
because he raps to Jeezy, but whatever.
But I really do think they're going to stick with Geno, and he's earned the right, I think, to try and do it again. He really has, because if he doesn't stay in Seattle, I'll tell you what, he's going to end up in Tampa.
Probably. And one thing I just randomly thought about this. I think the perfect guy, if you want to stick with Geno Smith as your starting quarterback for your Seattle, which I think they will, draft Hendon Hooker. Draft have him sit behind and see what happens. That would be beautiful. But anyways,
man, you know
I
how much
think
I love Hendon Hooker.
yeah, I think it's so great because I remember I was watching the Bears and Seahawks preseason game, and I was very infuriated with how the broadcast just kept egging on how bad the Bears are going to be and how long they have to go. And I'm just like, what about Seattle? Seattle's going to be terrible this year. To start Geno Smith, who's a career backup quarterback, like why aren't they getting the same attention? And it turns out I don't know what I'm talking about because they played their asses off this year. If I'm not mistaken, Geno Smith broke the single season record for passing yards for a Seattle Seahawks. Think about that.
Yep.
You've had Hasselbeck come through, and you had Russell Wilson, who was the face of the franchise for
Super Bowl.
One of them a Super Bowl, went to back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah.
They were a great franchise with Russell Wilson at the helm. But it turns out Geno Smith just seemed like a more seamless fit. And it also, not for nothing, it looks like the teammates like Geno Smith and Russell Wilson. They didn't
have to go through Geno's agent to talk to him. That's all that comes down
which to. Which is completely insane. I know you're married to Sierra, but enjoy Sierra, though. But anyways, credit to them. Their season's going to come to an end on Saturday, which is, I think you would still consider the season as a win if you are a Seahawks fan, and it's been great. But the one thing that I do want to touch on is, man, the Ravens are just so freaking unlucky, but it is so deserved. I am going to go. I do not think Lamar Jackson will play in this game. And when I think about it, I'm just like, man,
Pro Bowl Tyler Huntley.
Yeah. When I think about it, I'm just like, man, if this man does not play in the playoff game, there is no possible way he's coming back to Baltimore next year. It's crazy because
he will not be the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens next year. I don't think there's any circumstances where he is.
There's no way because literally the worst thing that could have happened ended up happening. He got hurt, missed a whole lot of games, and maybe is he milking his injury? Who knows? I'm not a doctor, and I'm not gonna self-diagnose somebody. But it's very, very clear to me that his interests are going above the team's. And truthfully, a lot of people are going to crap all over because you're supposed to play for your team and you're supposed to do all. No. The man deserves his money. He's the most dynamic player in football. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair that he had to go into this season. And also with the news that Roquan Smith got paid, freeing up a franchise tag. And Lord, I'm telling you, if you franchise tag him, everything that
holdout that you will see if he is franchise tag will put every other holdout you have ever seen to shame.
Like you thought Michael Crabtree was bad?
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell.
Listen, all I'm saying is this. It's going to be a bloodbath Sunday night. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be bad. But I must say, Ravens, you have nobody to blame but yourself. You have now put yourself in a position where you are going to have to replace Lamar Jackson. You can't do it. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I don't know what kind of talent you're going to get. I don't know what kind of running ability the next guy's going to have. But they're not going to be Lamar Jackson.
So I have a question because I don't think that this is crazy. Do you think Harbaugh's fired? Because something is clearly not going right there.
I don't think he's fired, but I do think he will be tempted to resign.
Interesting. What's your reasoning behind that?
So, in reality, John Harbaugh is doing the best with the cards he's being given. Mm-hmm. Defense is playing extremely well. The offense is simply not catching up. And if the Ravens have a modicum of accountability in their organization, they're gonna have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, the wide receivers have been lacking. Outside of Rashad Bateman, the running back position has still not been solved, even though J.K. Dobbins was supposed to be that guy, ended up getting
I
hurt.
mean, we've seen the
And
flashes
then
when he's able to stay on the field. That's the problem. He can't stay healthy just like everyone else on that offense.
Absolutely. And considering that Lamar Jackson has missed a good amount of games and the Ravens have still been able to right the ship, that should tell you that's a testament to how good Harbaugh is and what he is picking up, what the front office is not putting down. So if he knows that Lamar Jackson is out of town after this season, I would not be surprised if he resigns and goes somewhere else.
No, that's a fair point. And that franchise is gonna be in the doldrums if both those two are wrong. It's gonna be a sad place for Ravens fans.
Absolutely.
But hey, they don't deserve it. They got their franchise player in Roquan though, moving forward. So
good luck.
Hey,
good luck.
So another great young quarterback matchup on Saturday. You got Chargers at the Jaguars.
Oh yeah. Game of the weekend right there.
Yeah, I agree. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I think the Jaguars are as hot as anyone right now. And it's just a really, really interesting situation seeing just how much they've turned it on the last month and a half or so. I mean, we had talked on this show probably about a month or two ago. Jaguars were about plus 650 to win that division. And we both had said, hey, that might be something that people should be interested in. And what do you know? They ended up winning that division. But man, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. It's not the first time we're going to see those two face off in the playoffs, I don't think. Or not the last time, I should say. It is the first time.
Right.
Not the last. And I mean, if you think back to earlier this year too, before the Jaguars were really firing on all cylinders, they blew the doors off.
Beat them down.
Like, I think it was like a 4-score game, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. But, I mean, I don't know how you can trust Brandon Staley in a playoff game.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, he's not a good coach. Like, he makes the jokes that there used to be about Andy Reid's clock management make Andy Reid look like he had a doctorate in clock management, and Brandon Staley is stuck in high school algebra.
Brandon Staley might be the luckiest coach on the planet to luck into as talented as it gets football team.
Yep.
Because there was little to no reason to play the starters. Mike Williams gets hurt, and who knows if he's even going to play Saturday. I mean,
speaking of that, though, I would love to see how many snaps Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have actually been on the field together for this year. Because
it's not many.
No, I know. I mean, between those two, neither of them can ever stay on the field.
But it's just the Chargers play football like they're playing Madden. I mean it in every sense. The air it out stuff.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, the air it out and Madden, it's easy to run the ball. Running's easy for Austin Eckler nowadays, but they are so analytically driven. It drives you fucking insane just to see them playing football. Going on fourth down, deep into your own territory, never taking the points. They are so infuriating, and it's a direct result of Brandon Staley. I remember when Brandon Staley was a part of the Bears staff as a defensive coordinator, everybody was like, man, I don't want him to go. Maybe after John Fox leaves, he could be the next head coach. Well, thank fucking goodness that didn't happen.
Dude, like, he would have been eaten alive in this city worse than, honestly, maybe worse. No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say worse than Matt Nagy, but that with how it ended with Nagy, I don't think that's possible.
Honestly, Trestman got it worse than everybody.
I mean, you're right. You're right.
Got it worse than everybody.
You're right. But that's a very interesting game to me. I do think end of the day, pure talent will win out, and I do think the Chargers probably win that game, but hell of a building block for the Jaguars. I mean, first year with Doug Peterson could not have gone better. Could not have gone better. Division title. Trevor Lawrence took steps forward. Another young quarterback who you saw same draft class as Justin Fields. They
Mhm.
went out and spent money to get weapons around him. Look what
Yep.
happens. Look what
Mhm.
happened. The progression Trevor Lawrence made as a patch for this year. Crazy. It always comes back to Fields on this show, but whatever.
Is what it is. But I will say this though. There's an upset that's going to happen this weekend. It's going to take place in Minnesota.
That's what I was gonna say.
It's going to take place in Minnesota, and I listen.
Most overrated. Are they 13-win team? 13-win team of all time.
It's not even close. When
They have
you
a negative point differential as the 3 seed.
it makes no sense, and eventually, this nonsense got to stop. And who was the best defense possible to stop the nonsense? A team that didn't play all their starters last weekend and did very, very well against Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
The Giants defense is the type of defense you will want going into the playoffs. They are as aggressive as it gets. They blitz. They're very good at their time time blitz. And offensively, they may not blow you away. Daniel Jones has done his job this year, and he's going to earn himself another contract as a starting quarterback of the New York Giants. And that's a team. If they win against Minnesota, which I think they will, if they win, they better be careful. They better be careful because I'm telling you, this defense, they can travel. They've been really good this year. All you got to do is take Justin Jefferson out the game, and the Vikings are cooked.
And I mean, who did it? I was 2 weeks ago. It was the who did that to the
Green Bay.
yes. I mean, Jair Alexander, yes, but he just seemingly has Jefferson's number. But
yeah,
the Giants are a good football team.
Yeah,
Genuinely are a good football team, and they shouldn't have lost that game on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
They really should not have. I mean,
Yeah.
Greg Joseph hitting a 61-yarder. Yeah, no fucking that if that same scenario happens again, I would put my life savings he's not hitting that. It'll be who was the kicker for Blair Walsh? It'll be a Blair Walsh situation all over again. But I mean, you're right though. The Giants are a team that if I saw them come across my schedule, if they beat the Vikings, I don't want to see them.
No.
I do not want to see them under any circumstances because playoffs, your defense wins in the playoffs. And guess what else wins? When you can run the fucking football and control the game script. And guess what? They have a true bell cow in Saquon Barkley, and he is completely back to form.
It's going to be interesting this weekend because if I'm not mistaken, if San Francisco wins and the Giants win, that will be the matchup. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think the 49ers want to see the Giants. I know people love Brock Purdy. I know people are riding that wave, but I genuinely feel like I am not at the point where I could fully trust them against a good defense.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I mean, just on the topic of Brock Purdy, I just genuinely feel bad for quarterbacks coming out now because Purdy is going to drive the narrative.
He's the standard. He's going to be the standard now.
Yep. And that's fucked because that's just not the case. Brock Purdy was never a 7th round. He should not have been a 7th round pick to begin with.
I agree.
He also just ended up in as good of a situation he could have ended up in. And the Kyle Shanahan offense is, I mean, it's special, man. I mean,
it is.
I mean, across the board, the 49ers, even with Brock Purdy, are the team I want to see the least on AFC or NFC. And
100%.
They have not lost a game since bringing Christian McCaffrey in. They have not lost a game since bringing him in. Deebo Samuel is back and healthy. George Kittle looks like George Kittle again. And that has been the biggest revelation for that offense the last 4 or 5 weeks has been how good George Kittle has looked because they're finally getting him involved in the fucking offense like they should. And everyone is finally remembering, oh, damn, George Kittle was in the conversation with Travis Kelce for a minute that he was the best tight end in football.
Right.
And
that's right.
I mean, they just have everything that could be going well for them right now on the offensive side of the football. It's going well. And I'll say this right now. If Jimmy Garoppolo had not gotten hurt, they would be the Super Bowl favorite right now in terms of betting odds.
I would go as far as to say they would be the number one seed in the NFC. Like
Probably, yeah.
You need to have that veteran leadership, and regardless of what people think about Jimmy G, that he's just the middle of the road quarterback.
He knows how to win.
He works San Francisco. I mean, it's just his point. It's just that simple. Which by the way, should be biased, but be aware for Jimmy Garoppolo since he's gonna be outside of San Francisco. But yeah, whatever. Now, there's one more game I do want to talk about. And it's a game where if you look at the back of the jersey, word to Mike Greenberg, it is the sexiest game on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys and Buccaneers is going to be a beautiful disaster of a game. And it's a game where it feels like it's such a big significance behind it because you don't know what's going to happen with Brady after the season. You don't know what's going to happen with Dak Prescott in terms of his struggles. Because let me tell you, I've tweeted this out on Sunday. If the Cowboys lose in the playoffs, it will not be because of their defense. Because that looks horrid,
dude.
Horrid,
just like atrocious.
It's bad, and you know what? I don't even expect Tom Brady to outplay Dak Prescott. I expect them to be on the same level. Neither of them do nothing for me at this moment in time. I do remember where in week 1, it was a very big defensive battle. There was nobody had the upper hand. Of course, Tampa Bay did. They scored the most points. They won the game. But you didn't come away feeling great about either offense. So I think this defense is going to be this game is going to be very defensive driven. And it's crazy to me that we're talking about that with Tom Brady and Dak Prescott at the helm because it should be a shootout. And hell, it cannot be a shootout, but I just can't see it.
And I think the Buccaneers win this game.
I do as well.
I genuinely do. I do. And it's not even because of Tom Brady. That's not even my main reason there. I mean, yes, he knows how to win when it matters. He's never lost to the Cowboys in his entire career, 7-0. All the numbers back it up. It all comes down to that fat ass Mike McCarthy being on the sidelines for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, how does that guy have a fucking job still? Everyone said, I mean, do you remember when he got hired? How he said he spent his year and a half, 2 years off, whatever it was, becoming a data guy, putting a group of people around him, diving into the analytical side of football so he can understand and come back better than ever. Nothing has changed.
I tell you, I know Jerry Jones heard that and he's like, what the fuck did I just do? He just tricked me.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, he's a bottom. I'll say he's probably a bottom 5 to 7 head coach in the NFL. And
I agree.
I feel very comfortable saying that. And he has a very talented roster around him where it's hard to lose with the amount of talent that they have on that team. A monkey could probably lead that team to the playoffs, but it's Mike McCarthy is the reason they lose, not the talent on the field.
I can agree, and I think the tandem of McCarthy and Dak will lose this game. But if Dak wants to be successful, the Cowboys want to be successful, I will look at that Philadelphia game as the blueprint. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was a lot more shots being taken down the field, but also Dak's mobility being put into play. If Dak is not mobile in this game and they continue to keep him in the pocket, he will make mistakes. He may fuck around and throw 3 interceptions in that game. That's how I think his confidence is just not there. Mm-hmm. He goes on the road as well. I can't sit here with any type of confidence to say Dallas will win this game. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion because the Buccaneers don't do anything for me, but just how much Dak has struggled and how much the defense may be on the field because of it, I can't see Cowboys winning this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. So with that being said, we tossed this out a few weeks ago, our Super Bowl predictions, but with the playoffs starting this weekend, as of right now, I'll give you a minute to think of it. My prediction is staying the same. I for a couple weeks ago, I said 49ers Bills, and I am staying pat with that prediction. I just think storyline writes itself for both teams, right? The 49ers, they have the Mr. Irrelevant, from Mr. Irrelevant to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a movie story. They went out and got McCaffrey. I mentioned Kittle's back, Debo, Ayuk, their offense is electric. And then you have Buffalo Bills, who they have really honestly become America's team the last few weeks because of the Damar Hamlin tragedy. And now that Damar is back in Buffalo, finishing his rehab there and seems to be okay. I mean, they're going to want to win a Super Bowl more than ever before for him. And I just think the story writes itself for both teams. And I think they're on a collision course for each other at this point in time.
I want to pick Buffalo so bad. I really, really do. I really, 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 really do. But I am really bad at Super Bowl predictions. Clearly,
Hey, it's
I
right.
had to say come out the NFC.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I said the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl preseason, so here we are.
So I think we will see a rematch of a particular Super Bowl this year. We're going to see the 49ers and the Bengals in the Super Bowl this year. The Bengals are the best team in the AFC that nobody is talking about. Everything's about Buffalo. Everything's about Kansas City. Cincinnati has been playing out their damn minds recently. I know they lost Alex Kappa, which is going to be a big on their offensive line because their offensive line is already above average. They don't blow anybody away, but they are as dangerous as it gets. And I do think when it comes to matchups, a lot of speed is on both teams when it comes to San Francisco and Cincinnati. But with the weapons that Cincinnati has, it's just different. It's just different. So if I had to pick a winner, I would pick Cincinnati to come out of that and win the Super Bowl against San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the offensive weapons of the 49ers. I mean, Cincinnati's really the only other team in football, in my opinion, who can match that. I mean, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. That's about as good of a three-headed monster with Joe Burrow throwing you the football as it gets. And I would not be surprised. I'm with you that I think that they are flying under the radar, which makes no sense considering the season they've had.
Yeah.
And I mean, shout out to them though, because a lot of people thought they were going to have a letdown this year after going to the Super Bowl this year. And I mean, I did too as well. I thought they would still be okay, but I did not think we'd be in a position right now talking about the Bengals winning a Super Bowl again.
I wanted to lean towards Kansas City because it feels like they're the popular pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do the popular pick because it seems too simple. I have to be different and I have to just stand apart. So I don't think Cincinnati and San Francisco is out of the nowhere pick, but I do think that'll end up being the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, I don't hate that. So just to wrap up the show here, we have to talk about it. College football playoff. I mean, what happened on Monday night was a beating unlike anything we've ever seen on a stage that large. I mean, I don't think anyone had any type of real expectations for TCU. TCU fans can't be upset with how that game. Okay, they can be upset with how the game went, but you can't be upset with how that season went, considering they won 5 games last year. Hell of a story, but Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs have firmly cemented themselves as college football's new dynasty.
Congratulations to Georgia. They're the new juggernauts in college football. I want to get that out the way. I want to say that I barely watched the game. I already knew what was going to happen. Once I saw Stetson Bennett become Josh Allen, I said, yeah, that's going to be what the game's going to be. What I'm really focused on is this. Michigan could have beat this team. Michigan could have beat these guys.
Yeah.
That's just literally, I couldn't even focus on the game for when they just kept piling on points. And I'm just thinking, Michigan couldn't beat these guys. So all because they beat themselves.
They didn't play their game.
And the refs did too. But it that just kept going through my mind the more I kept watching this game. And the more I did, the more disgusted that I got with that Michigan team. I'm not going to sit here and say they should be ashamed of themselves, but damn, really? The Michigan is the reason why we were deprived of a good national championship,
Mhm.
and it makes me sick.
Yeah, and I do think Michigan would have made that a game because I think a lot of that came down to Georgia just physically just TCU could not match them physically.
No, not at all.
And you saw it. Ohio State stuck around with them, and I think Michigan would have stuck around as well. So I get your frustrations. 100%, I understand your frustrations. I mean, Georgia is just. And do you know what's crazy about it? Do you know anyone who genuinely hates Georgia?
No.
No, because we all knew people who hated Clemson. Both of us here on this show hate Clemson and Dabo Sweeney.
Oh yeah.
Everyone hated with them. We both hate Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think a large majority of people have a strong dislike towards Nick Saban in Alabama. And
Not me. I'll be honest.
I don't either. I think it's just because we're really not SEC guys. Like we're Big Ten guys. End of the day, we're Big Ten guys. So I mean, but it's just there are a lot of people who genuinely dislike Alabama, and
of course.
I can't tell you a single person I know who has bad things to say about Georgia. Kirby Smart. I mean, Kirby Smart. The worst thing I can say about him is whoever told him it was a good idea to wear a visor like that is a fucking asshole.
And his haircut stinks.
It legitimately looks like one of those like gag visors that have fake hair. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it is fake hair. But
yeah,
if that's the only bad thing you can say about Kirby Smart, you're in a good position to continue on an upward trajectory with that program.
I agree. And you know what? It's always good to have a changing of the guard. And it's always cool to live through these because you live through the USCs, you live through the Miamis, you live through the Alabamas and whatnot. But seeing somebody upend the top dogs, no pun intended, it's good to see. And I'm happy for Georgia because, like you said, there's nobody that hates Georgia. And truthfully, I think what really helps is that the state of Georgia has gone through so much trauma that you have no choice but to root for them. There's nothing to hate. So good for them. I'm happy for the entire program. And listen, as long as Kirby Smart is there, they might continue to run off a couple more. They're that good, and Kirby Smart's that good.
And imagine what's going to happen when they don't have an insurance salesman playing quarterback.
If they get an elite guy at quarterback, and it's not to say Stetson Bennett is
Stetson Bennett. I'll say this. I will say this about Stetson Bennett. If you look at his resume, you can legitimately make an argument that he is the greatest Georgia Bulldog of all time, aside from Herschel Walker. Which is crazy to say, but it's hard to argue.
And you know what? Crazy to say this. He's better than Matthew Stafford was at Georgia. In terms of college success, I would take him over Matthew Stafford because the guy knows how to win.
Yep.
That's important.
Yeah. What a wild end to a great football season, though. Both levels, college and NFL. It was honestly a very fun year. I mean, we mentioned changing the guard in college football, especially. It felt that way with Tennessee being back. Hendon Hooker. I mean, TCU making the playoff, Alabama not making the playoff, Clemson not making the playoff. It seemed different this year, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, and I think we're going to kind of continue on that trajectory, and just. College football is in a very good place, and with all the talent, young talent at the quarterback position in the NFL right now, it's in an even better place. So it's a great time to be a football fan.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Goonery. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, we will be back next week.